psychology of the South African consumer has come under sharp focus ahead of this year's festive season, which is expected to be weighed down by the tough economic climate. That's as financially burdened consumers continue to face the rising cost of living, elevated inflation and the escalated interest rate. Senior lecturer at the Regent Business School, Shaheen joins us for this conversation. Shaheen, thank you so much for your time. Different dynamics this time around as we go into the so-called silly season, as well as Black Friday next week. What is the traditional nature of consumer behavior when it comes to spending patterns during this time?
Thank you. Good morning to you and the viewers. So, you know that this year has been particularly hard with regards to South African consumers. We've seen multiple interest rate hikes in conjunction with fuel price increases. So, even with all of this, research still indicates that South Africans are expected to spend over 200 billion this festive season. The majority of this expenditure is going to revolve around food, travel, and Christmas gifting. However, when we look at how South African consumers are going to finance all this additional spending, so a lot of it comes down to allocating an average of 6,000 Rand to their budget, and the funding for this usually is on year-end bonuses and 13 checks and short-term finance.
Now, where would this particular spend come from? Not everyone within the labour landscape is going to get what is known and traditionally called the 13th check.
Exactly. So a lot of South Africans are going to be relying on credit. And with the high interest rates, it brings into question what's going to happen in January, where they're going to have to start repaying all of this debt. We're also seeing a change in consumer spending as well, where people are not necessarily making large purchases anymore. So there's been a shift in spending towards more sort of essential goods during this festive season, in particular the Black Friday period.
That's dangerous territory. Credit to fund what then becomes the festive season of festivities, for lack of a better terminology. Is it worth it? What are the dangers there? So,
look, there's been a lot of debate as to, for example, Black Friday in particular. There's a lot of debate in South Africa when you compare the so-called sort of discounting that is available to South African consumers on Black Friday, and you compare it to other countries around the world. So, for example, last year, 2022, there was a lot of issues around whether Black Friday really offered deals to consumers. On average, it was working out to just 10% discounts. Nobody was really seeing the 50% discounts that was promised. So, but also firms need to bear in mind the fact that with digital, everyone's on the internet, and with digital marketing in particular, everyone has access to pricing. So last year in 2022 in particular, there was a lot of issues around where there really deals on Black Friday.
And the same could be said about the retail space across the board, even throughout the December period, in that the price determination is not necessarily what you would see with the pricing, say, in the middle of winter. How does a consumer decipher and discern what not to spend on and for how much?
So it's recommended that consumers draw up a budget, really sort of narrow down what are essential items, what are needed items, what are luxury items. Also bearing in mind that despite all of this, the fact is that we're in an emotional time. And psychologically, people are winding down. And they tend to make more sort of emotional purchases. So it's actually recommended that consumers need to sort of rein that in particular, and bearing in mind to anticipate the upcoming 2024 year, when they're drawing up their budget.
We'll leave it there with Shaheen Khan, a senior lecturer at the Regent Business School, talking about deciphering the consumer psychology ahead of the festive season.